everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors. And today's contract tip is a continuation of the 2022 changes that the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, made to their contract package. Today, we are going to talk about everyone's favorite, the Community Association Disclosure Exhibit. So I've got good news and bad news. The bad news, taken with a grain of salt, is they made a lot of changes to this form. The good news is it's basically all formatting changes. Nothing conceptually has changed that much. So just a couple of things they changed in April of last year. So let's dive in. I'm going to actually show you what the forms look like. So give me 1 second and I will show you that. All right. So this is the form from last year. No, this is the form from this year. The form from last year, here we go. This is the form from last year. So from 2021, this is the 2021 version of the Community Association Disclosure Exhibit. I'm just showing you this for purposes of illustrating the differences. So you'll see in this one, it starts with number 1, directions for filling out this disclosure, and it is information directed at the seller. And then there's all types of questions, general disclosures, types of associations, fees, assessments, special assessments, all this type of information that the seller needs to go through and fill in everything. And then at the end, it has a place for buyer and seller initials. So what GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, has changed for 2022, this is the 2022 version. And you'll see a couple of things, and these formatting changes will look very familiar to you. The first thing is they left the directions for filling out the Community Association disclosure for the seller. Back in April, they did add an admonition for the seller to confirm the information with the Community Association. Then for 2022, they have added the buyer's use of this disclosure. That looks familiar to you because that same type of information is included in the seller's property disclosure exhibit. So the new paragraph is buyer's use of disclosure. While this disclosure is intended to give the buyer basic information about the community in which the buyer is purchasing, the buyer should read the covenants and other legal documents for the community to fully understand the buyer's rights and obligations therein. This disclosure does not address all of the issues that may affect a buyer as the owner of a residence in a community, in this community. Assessments in community associations tend to increase over time. The covenants can normally be amended to reflect the changing preferences in the community. And as you know, the covenants are publicly recorded documents. So a buyer during their due diligence period will be able to find those online. The next thing they did formatting wise is they put all of the fill in the blanks under paragraph A, key terms and conditions, and then they moved all of the further explanation to the corresponding paragraphs in paragraph B. Again, that looks very, very familiar to you because that is the same setup as the purchase and sale agreement and a lot of the other documents. The fill in the blanks are at the beginning and then the explanatory information follows after that. So for 2022, all the fill in the blanks are under paragraph A, key terms and conditions, the type of association, the contact information for the association, assessments, special assessments, transfer, initiation, administrative fees, utility expenses, assessments paid for which services, amenities, and costs. And you list all of those that are for the property itself and for the common areas. Any type of litigation pending, violations, so forth and so on. So that's all the information that the seller fills out. Then under paragraph B, further explanations to corresponding paragraphs in section A, it goes on to describe and further define what was filled out in paragraph A, the type of association. It talks about what that is, that the buyer acknowledges that they do have the right to examine the declarations, and there's certain restrictions and bylaws, so forth and so on. The contact information, what the assessments are, disclosure regarding fees, what the buyer shall pay, what the seller shall pay, an account statement or clearance letter. Special assessments, what special assessments are under consideration, who bears the liability for any undisclosed special assessments, who pays for the ones that have been disclosed, what happens if there are special assessments levied on the community after the parties go binding, and then transfer initiation and administrative fees. What does the buyer pay? What does the seller pay? What fees are defined? How are they defined? So all of the conceptual information has not changed. Bottom line, the seller needs to disclose all the fees associated with the HOA and the management company to a buyer. And basically what is not disclosed, the seller will be responsible for paying those at the closing table. And then the last thing they did is, instead of just initial spaces, they did add actual signature lines for the buyers and the sellers. So again, this is a very important document for your sellers to complete, because a lot of times the issue with the sellers paying undisclosed fees at the closing table is not meant as a penalty by any means. The issue is a lot of management companies will only disclose the fees to a seller, not to a buyer, not to either agent. Now, the buyer will have access to the covenants because, again, those are recorded documents, public documents. But a lot of times the association will only disclose various fees to the seller. So the seller needs to present those fees, disclose those fees, so that a buyer may make an informed, consented informed decision whether or not to continue buying a property in a community that does have an HOA. Hope this contract tip helped you out. Stay tuned for more contract tips on various documents that the Georgia Association of Realtors did change for 2022 in their contract package. And I will link below. Please watch several previous videos that I have done on the various changes. And I will also link below. We teach several CE classes on the changes to the 2022 GAR contract package. Thank you so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education.